Hi and welcome to this tutorial where I demonstrate how to make this stunning wedding cake. Even if you've never made a wedding cake before, I simplify it all, break it down step by step, showing the gorgeous marbling, these really simple roses and the beautiful draping. I'm Claire, so let's get going. This first lesson, I'm going to show you how to fill and stack your sponges. Traditionally, the tiers of wedding cakes have always been about 3 inches high, but in recent years, trends have shown that they're a lot taller now. So I'm going to make a wedding cake where each tier is 5 inches high. To do this, I've got 3 sponges here for one tier, and you need to bake them deep enough that you can actually cut off any doming at the top. It's really important that you actually have a flat sponge. To do this, you can use a long, sharp knife, like a bread knife or a carving knife. But if you want a professional job, I would recommend you use a cake leveler, which is one of these. Now, to use this, you can kind of adjust the height with them so they move up and down either side. And then all you want to do is just put it against your cake and make sure that it's low enough that you're cutting off the sides so you've got no doming and it's a completely flat top. Now, I've watched people use these before, and what people can sometimes do without realizing it is as they're moving along, they tend to lean this one way or the other. What that does without you realizing it is it actually lowers the height of this. So it's so important that you keep this upright at all times to keep that same height going all the way through the cake. So keep it upright, and very simple, you just do a soaring motion. Hold the cake in position with your hand and just saw all the way along. I don't stop and turn it. I just keep going all the way like this. There we go. And then you take your top off and you have a nice flat top here. Now, I've done this with all 3 of my sponges already, and the first one I've already put on my board. So with this cake, the bottom tier, we're putting it straight onto the bottom board. So this board is actually a display board. So this is a board that you want to look quite pretty because it's going to be seen. So my first sponge is stuck on the board with a little bit of buttercream just to keep it in place. And now we're going to put our first layer of buttercream in. Obviously for you, you can use any kind of filling you like, depending on what flavour cake you're doing. I've got standard buttercream here, and I'm using a palette knife, and my board is actually on a turntable. So once I've got a good layer of buttercream on, I'm going to show you a little trick about keeping your buttercream level after you've done that levelling of your sponges. What you don't want to do is make everything unlevel by having messy buttercream. Okay, so I've got my buttercream on there and I've kind of put it to the edge. Now what I do, and the reason for the turntable, is because I like to kind of lock my arm quite straight with a palette knife, and I just hold my arm in position and I turn my turntable, and as I go around, my buttercream just starts to flatten out. Doesn't have to be perfect, but all you're doing is you're flattening your buttercream so it's as level as your sponges. Okay, and then if you want to put jam in, because obviously it's really nice to have a bit of jam or some lemon curd or something in a cake. One thing where people worry is about it spilling out, and that can cause a problem. So to prevent this, what I do is bring the tip of my palette knife just slightly in a bit, about an inch in from the edge of the cake, press down, a little bit of pressure and a little bit of a tilt, and then I just turn again. And what I'm doing, as you can see, is I'm just creating a shallow well in the center of the cake, like so. It's really shallow, but that tiny little lip of buttercream will just help prevent your jam or whatever filling you're using from spilling out onto the edge. So now I've got my jam here. I'm just going to spoon it on. And then again, use a palette knife and just spread it out to that edge that you just created. There we go. I've got quite a wide edge there, but you can probably go a little bit closer to the edge if you want a little bit more jam towards the edge. But just make sure you create enough of a well that it doesn't splurt out. Right, now I've done that, I'm going to put my first sponge on top. And I'm just going to place it straight on like that. And then what I've just done, I'm going to repeat with this layer. Okay, so now for the final layer. And this one, when you put this sponge on, you want to turn it upside down so that the cut layer is on the inside. And then you just place that on top and just press it in nicely. Now, in theory, your cake should be level. You've got 3 level sponges and you leveled off your buttercream. But it could be a couple of mils out. And that doesn't matter for a 1 tier or 2 tier cake. But when you start stacking cakes at 3 tiers, 4 tiers, that matters. They need to be level. So a little tool I use is a spirit level. And this is your last kind of chance, really, to your opportunity to level it out. So just put some greaseproof paper over your sponge. And then put your spirit level on top like that in one line. Now, check your bubble. I can see my bubble is not in the center. So what I'm going to do is just slightly squeeze onto the sponge and it just realigns the buttercream and squeezes it out slightly so you get your bubble in the center. And then what you do then is you just turn it and then you do it again on the other side. Just a slight squeeze of the buttercream. Manipulation of the sponge until your bubble is in the center, which it is. Brilliant. Okay, now we've got a level cake. I'm going to put some buttercream around it. So just take the same buttercream that you were using to fill it. And you're just going to go all the way around. Give it a good, nice, good layer all the way around. Okay, I'm just finishing that off so it's nice and perfect. As you can see, I've now finished the buttercream and I've had a bit of a clear up, ready now to move on to covering the cakes. I'm now going to create this beautiful marble effect in my sugar paste. Now I've got 1.5 kilos of sugar paste here, which is about the right amount for my base tier, which is a 9-inch cake, and obviously it's quite deep. So I've already kneaded this. It's so important that your sugar paste or fondant is really soft and malleable. So give it a really good knead before you begin your marbling. And I'm just going to put a little bit of icing sugar down just so it doesn't stick as I'm doing this. And what I've also got is I've got my colour, and this is the Squires peach colour that I'm using. And what I've done is I've taken just a small amount of my normal white sugar paste and I've coloured it with a little bit of the peach, and then here you can see with a little bit more. So just same colouring, but just different concentrations. So all we do is we just want to press this down, a little bit like if you were working with some bread or dough. And we take some of this, just little bits like that, and you're just going to press it in. And then the same again for the darker shade. So you can put it a long one or you can put it on its own. There we go, like that. And then I take a brush, just a small paintbrush, and I actually get some of the neat colouring on my brush, and then you actually just paint some streaks. I'm going to do a streak on its own, like that. They're just really random. There's no real rhyme or reason, although I am having them kind of in the same direction. And then one nicely alongside here. And then I'm going to put another one here. There we go, and just a little one in there, just for good measure. Right, I'll move these out of the way. So here is where the magic happens. So all you do, the way I do it is I like to just squeeze this together so that it's kind of all contained, like that. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then kind of start to roll it a bit, so it's like a bit of a sausage, like that. Now, if you look at this cake, you can see that this has got quite a lot of peach colour going on. And this cake here is quite white with some streaks of peach going around it. the different effects depend on what you do at this point. So if you want a slightly more peachier colour, what I just did, put a little bit more in. If you want to keep it more white, like this one, just put less in. And you'll see now as I start to knead this and get the marble effect, how to get more lines or keep it slightly more whiter and just with the odd streak. So what I'm doing now is I'm just folding it over and over like that, squish it down again into more of a sausage. And then repeat. So over and over. Now at this point, it's still white. I can't see any of my colour. So I'm going to keep going. But do not overdo it. Because you'll be surprised when you actually start rolling it out into, you know, a flat piece, that the colour starts coming through. But the more you do this folding it in three, the more lines you will get. Just depends on the look you're trying to create. The thing about marble, it's natural, so it never ever looks the same. So I'm just going to put that back into more of a round circle, like so. I'm ready to roll it out. So with the rolling, I use icing sugar. Get plenty on there. And you want a nice big rolling pin, and you just start to roll forwards and backwards. And look at that, straight away you can see that beautiful marble effect coming through. This point, I turn it, because don't forget, ultimately we want to create a big circle. So turn it and then roll. Same again, repeat. Now, keep doing this until your sugar paste is roughly about 5 mils thick. That's quite a good thickness for covering a cake. But what you can do, a little tip for you, to make sure you've rolled it out wide enough, is you actually bring your cake in. I'm just going to bring my cake over to me. And you can just use your rolling pin as a guide. So what you do is you kind of put your rolling pin over your cake. You think, right, so it's that high, it's that wide, and it's that deep there, which is basically essentially the width of my rolling pin. So I need to make sure that my sugar paste is rolled wide enough. So I'm going to keep going. Turn it again and roll. Okay, so my sugar paste is now wide enough and I've got this beautiful marble effect on it. However, what's great about this technique is the underside is going to look completely different. So I'm going to actually look underneath and see what the pattern is like underneath. Then I can actually decide, do I want this pattern on my cake or the one underneath? So look at this one underneath. That one is different. So this one is more streaky and more lines. This one is more peach. So you actually have two chances at getting the look you want. I actually prefer this side personally for the look that I'm trying to create. So I'm going to keep it this way. Now when it comes to covering the cake and putting your sugar paste on the cake, you don't want to start ripping this, because the thing is, if anything goes wrong with this, you can't really put it right. So what I do is I always bring the cake to the sugar paste. I don't drag the sugar paste because that risks tearing it. So I take my rolling pin, make sure you've got your cake next to you. I'm left-handed, so I hold the rolling pin with my left hand. It's just what I'm more comfortable with. And I flip the sugar paste over the rolling pin. Then, as I said, do not stretch or drag that. Bring the cake into you, and then lift it up and over, and then just gently flip it down like that. Right, now what we want to do now is start smoothing it on these edges, because what you don't want is any of this, what I call elephant skin effect. So I've got a smoother here. Your hands are really powerful tools when it comes to smoothing cakes, but if you want that professional finish, I would recommend that you get a smoother. And all you do is you start off on the top and making sure there's no air bubbles. Just press it down. And then before we deal with any of this, it's really important that you deal with these edges here, because they're where you're going to get any tears. If you're going to get any potential tears, that's where it's going to happen with the weight of the sugar paste. So let's get these nicely stuck on first. And I've actually got it on a turntable again, because it means I can just easily turn it. So I'm just getting the edges nicely stuck on, so there's no tears. Now that's done, we work down. What you do when you're doing this is you never ever drag the sugar paste down, because that again risks tearing it. So you lift it out and you don't drag or pull, you just press in. Press it gently in and then you move along, same again. So lift it out and then just press it in. Don't pull it down, you're just pressing. And work all the way around, pressing in, just to start with. This is what I call my first fix, if you like. Just getting the sugar paste nicely on there before we do the final smoothing. Right, now as we get to the bottom, we can start to get rid of this excess sugar paste. So just use a knife and just start to take off some of the excess from here. So remember, just pull it out. You don't want that creasing at the bottom, so just pull it out. And I just always just press in at the bottom here, and then I can just bring a knife round. And then same again, working your way round. Okay, so now you've done that, take your smoother, and I like to just press on the side and just make sure it's just nice and straight all the way around like that. I've noticed I'm not going all the way to the bottom yet. I'm just getting this nice side edge, nice and straight, and this is where the turntable really helps you. Just pressing all the way around. Right, now I've got this nice and straight and secure, I just work on the bottom. My particular smoother has a flat edge and a curved edge. So you can use any smoother, and as I said, you don't actually have to use one. It just gives a more professional finish. But if you are going to invest in a smoother, I like this one here because the flat edge is really good if you have that facing down, because you can really press down and get a nice sharp line at the bottom when you then want to trim off your excess here. So you trim that off. Can you see now you've got that nice flat edge? I'll go around here, same again. So down, that straight edge gets a nice, neat edge for you to then cut like that, and then just get rid of that excess. So repeat that all the way around, just smoothing off as you go. Okay, now I've been very lucky here. I actually haven't got any air bubbles in here, which is a good thing. However, please don't panic if you do get an air bubble. All you need to do is take something really sharp like a cocktail stick, and you just want to poke the center of the air bubble, press the air out, and then just smooth it over again, and you're fine. Don't leave air bubbles, because what they do is they grow. They may look small to start with, but they do grow. So get rid of any air bubbles you have at this stage. I think that looks nice and smooth. I'm happy with that. Now I have got my sugar paste down to the board, but there is the odd little bit here where it's actually not quite to the board. I've just cut it a little bit shy of the board. But I'm not worried, because what we're going to do is we're going to put ribbon around the bottom. So don't worry too much if it's not absolutely perfect right at the board. So now I've got this cake covered, I'm going to move on to covering the rest of them. I've now got all my tiers here, and I've gone for 3. So I've got a 5, a 7 and the 9. Now this one, as you saw, we put it straight onto the display board. The other tiers, you also need to put them onto a board. So if I just tip this up very, very slightly, you can see that it's on a board, and the board is the same width as your cake. Now the reason I was able to pick that up like that is because actually these 3 cakes I made yesterday. you really have to leave them for 24 hours before stacking, because it just gives the sugar paste a chance to firm up so you can actually handle them and pick them up for stacking. So stacking, let me talk to you about dowels. You have to dowel cakes when you're stacking them. And I've got these are food grade easy cut dowels. And I like these because, well, they're easy to cut and also they're hollow. So you start off with the bottom tier, and what you do is you go straight into the center. So I put my dowel in, press it in, don't make sure it's not leaning, go straight down, and you go down until the dowel touches the board. Then what you do is, you don't obviously want to get a pen and mark that because you don't want pen near the cake. So I just use my thumb. So I put my thumb, so it's just the tip of my thumb is touching the top of the cake, hold that in position, and then I pull the dowel out again, gently. And then holding my thumb in position, I then cut that. Now be careful when cutting, keep it low because the dowels can go flying. So I cut that. Now that is my main center one. And now I'm just going to do another 4 the same. So just line it up with your dowel and then just cut. And again, just be careful because they can go flying. So I've got 5 dowels and you just pop them in. So pop that one back in just to fill that hole of the cake that you pulled out. And then I'm just going to do it in a square, as in 1, 2, 3, 4. But obviously you need to make sure it's wide enough that it supports the top tier, but it's not so wide that actually you see them. So it's got to be within the 7-inch cake that you're putting on top, or whatever size you're putting on top, depending on the size you're using. So we place one here and just press down. And then directly opposite. There you go. So you've got a square of dowels. There we go. Right. So in order to make the next cake sit nicely on this and stay, I've got a bit of buttercream here. Just want to put some buttercream on your cake. You don't need a lot, just enough to act as a glue. And obviously make sure it stays within that diameter so you can't see it when you put the next cake on. So 24-hour-old cake that I can pick up because it's nice and firm. I'm going to lift this up and I'm going to place it onto the cake. At this point, because the buttercream is still wet, you can move it. I've got my bottom cake on a turntable, so I can turn this. So what you can do is have a look. Firstly, to make sure it's centralized, you can move it along. And secondly, you might want to line up the pattern. You don't have to. It depends how your marbling came out. But my marbling, if I can find mine, oh, that was it. I really like that line. So I had this nice line here that I liked. And I have a nice line here. So I actually want to line these up. So I'm just going to turn it. I'm just going to turn it towards me because I actually need to be able to see this to make sure I'm happy with my lining up. There we go. So you've got time to play before your buttercream sets. So there, I wanted them 2 lines to line up. Okay, so then you just repeat with the 5-inch one, only this time you use 3 dowels. There we go. Now, it just happens that my marbling has worked out that I can have this really amazing line going down. So I've actually lined that up. You don't have to, but I just thought, actually, I really like that. As I said earlier, if you're not happy with your edges, or even if you are happy with them, but just for that lovely bit of extra decoration, we can put a ribbon around it. And I'm going to do that now. I've got this gorgeous peach ribbon here, this nice satin peach ribbon. I'm going to put this around all 3 tiers. So what you do, it's very simple, just take your ribbon and wrap it. Obviously you want the join to be at the back. So I've got the back towards me here. So I'm just going to measure it and then cut it. There we go. And then, now I'm using edible glue to stick the ribbons on. So just get a brush and a little bit of glue at the back. I'll just turn that so you can actually see it. But I'm just literally putting a tiny little dab of glue at the back there. And then I'm going to place my ribbon on it there. So it sits nicely just on the top of this cake. Then wrap it round and then join it. There we go, like that. And that's the back of the cake. So I'm just going to turn that so you can see that. And then I'm just going to repeat with the other 2 tiers. So the final one, just stick that on. And there's our ribbon. It really, really finishes off the cake nicely. So now that's done, we're going to put it to one side and work on the decorations. Now on to the roses. Do not worry if you have never made a single sugar flower before, because I'm going to show you how to make these roses in all these different sizes using this one cutter, the easiest rose ever cutter. I've got here half modelling paste and half leftover sugar paste from covering the cake. And the reason you mix the modelling paste in with it is it just dries quicker. So I've kneaded that, and I've got 2 shades here. So let me just pop these out the way. So I've got some space. And we want to roll them out. So I'm going to take some of one of the shades first and use corn flour. I use corn flour, not icing sugar. This is corn flour just tied into a little cloth here, a fine cloth, like a gauze. And I use corn flour because when you're actually working with your hands rather than all over a cake and you're kneading small bits, icing sugar gets really sticky. So corn flour is much better. So start off by just pressing it down so you start to get a bit of a rectangle shape. And then you want to start to roll it out. There we go, let's just put that over. Yep, that's fine. So place your cutter on, press down, give it a good rub, and then you can take that off. So put that to one side and pop it out. Now, I'm going to put this onto this foam matting here, and then I'm going to make 2 more. I'm going to make one of the same colour and one of my lighter colour. I've got all 3 cut out now. The reason I did 3 was because if you go back to the first one you cut out, it just means that that one has had a little bit longer to dry before moving on to the next one. So you take the end of your rolling pin, and what you're doing, I'm just going to move these out of the way, is you're going to just thin the edges. So gentle press on the edges. So it's almost like your rolling pin is just right on the edge, slightly onto the foam, and you're just going to go along. And a little tip for you, if it starts to stick, get your little cornflour pouch. Have it nearby so you can just dab it on your cornflour pouch and then go on it again. So just keep going along. Just a slight thinning of the edges like that. There we go. Then what we do is we actually turn this upside down. Let's flip it over, and you take some edible glue. You just want to paint down the centre here. So you're kind of going down the spine, but just slightly onto each side. There we go. Then you want to fold it over, right down the middle. And as you fold it, you'll see that the petals go in between each other. And then just squish that down so it's nice and flat along this edge here. Okay. Then you want to roll it. So take one end. I'm just going to turn this because it's just easier for me if I start up this way. So you're going to take one end, and this is the center of your rose. So you want it to be nice and tight because the center of the rose is nice and tight. So just start to turn it like that. Okay. Now, you need to make sure that you have glue going down from that point there all the way to the bottom to this one here. So now turn that in and stick it to the glue and just turn, and then you keep going around and wrapping it up nice and tight. Just put a bit of glue underneath if that one doesn't come up with it. And then at this point, you actually stand it upright like that. And as you wrap it, as you start to fold it in, you want to just tease the petals out slightly and then wrap it around a bit more, tease them out, go a little bit more and then tease them out. I'm just using my fingers to tease them out, but you can use a brush. So you go all the way like that. Now take a brush and just tease them a little bit more. And what you can do, if you want them to look a little bit more soft and a little bit more natural, you can just sort of pinch them a little bit like that. Have a little bit of a pinch. Just makes it look a little bit more like a realistic rose. That pinch really makes a difference on them. There we go. So there is your first one. Okay, now I'm going to do it again. I'm going to repeat that with this one, which is a lighter colour, because this is going to be a darker scented rose. So go again with your rolling pin, just flatten the edges. And as before, just glue down the centre. And fold it in. And press down. So this time you want to do the same again. So you want some glue down one side, but you want to bring this one in and start pressing it on one side here, and just keep the bottom of the rose flat and start bringing it round, and again start teasing these out as you go round. Tease them out before they start overlapping. Just tease them so you get that last one on like that, and just sort of have a little bit of a squeeze at the bottom just so it's all nice and secure. And same again, so just use the end of a brush just to tease them out a little bit. What's really great about this also is because you've got half of the sugar paste and half of the modelling paste, it doesn't dry straight away, so you can go back to them and have a little bit of a fiddle. So I'm going to have just a little bit of another sort of squeeze. I like this little pinch of them because I just think it makes them look a little bit more natural. So just pull them out, have it slightly more open rose, like that. And how pretty does that look? Because it's got the darker centre and it's going out a lot lighter, and it just makes it look much more realistic. Really, really like that one. Now for a bud. And can you see there's like a halfway point? So right in the centre there on a diagonal, you just want to cut it. So there you've got two. Right, so let's focus on this one. Same again, you just want to thin the edges. And then glue again down the middle. And fold it over. Like that. Give it a bit of a squish on that join. And then glue down all of it. Right, so I actually like to roll from this cut edge here. So the round petal is my outer petal. So start rolling again, roll quite tight. And then once you get a bit of a roll on it, same again, you stand it upright. And then you go around like that and just be a bit sort of manipulative with it. And then once you're all the way around, just squeeze the bottom. Same again, just be a little bit manipulative on the petals with your brush. And there you have a lovely bud. So using the same cutter, you can have different size roses. I put 2 layers on that one. I didn't have to. I could have put 1 layer on. So that way you can get 3 different sizes. They look really pretty. So now I've done them, I'm going to show you how I made the leaves. For the leaves, I've got the same 50-50 as the roses. This time I've just got a tiny, tiny bit of the peach colour in. So it's very, very pale. Make sure you've got plenty of corn flour on your surface and just roll this out about 1 millimetre thick. And then I've got a rose leaf cutter here. So you just press it down, give it a little rub, and then pick it up. If it's still stuck in your cutter, then you can just give it a little bit of a rub around your cutter here. And what that does is it just gets rid of any furring, so it comes out nice and clean. Okay, now I've got a veiner here, and I'm going to show you why veiners are really, really worth investing in. They just make such a difference. Sometimes you might want to put a little bit of corn flour in the veiner if it's a bit sticky, not too much. And then you place your leaf in the veiner like that, and then fold it over. Then just put your hand on it, give it a bit of a squeeze, lift it up, and then look at that. Look at the difference between that and that one. It just makes it look so realistic. So it's really worth getting a veiner. You can get all different types of veiners as well, all different types of leaves. I'm now going to put this, give it a bit of a curve and put it over on this foam here. And you let it dry sort of slightly off shape, and it just makes it look really realistic. If you don't have one of these, what you can do is just get some tin foil and roll the tin foil up, because tin foil, you can obviously shape it how you want it. Leaves are now done, roses are done. I've made about 9 big roses and about 4 small roses and about 25 leaves. So we're going to move on now to adding the drapes to the cake. When it comes to putting drapes on a cake, it can be really tricky. I'm going to teach you a method which is really, really simple. I'm putting white drapes on the cake because I think they'll look really pretty against the peach. And here I've got the same as the roses and the leaves, so it's 50-50 sugar paste and modelling paste, and I've kneaded it so it's really soft. When you put drapes on a cake, start from the bottom. So this is going to be the biggest one I'm going to show you first. And before I start rolling out, I just want to show you this. With the drapes, I'm going across in 3 sections. So have a kind of think in your mind where you actually want to attach them, because once you start rolling out, you want to kind of be ready. So have a look at the cake, and we've got this pattern going on here. Do you remember when I stacked them, I said I really liked the way that the line had fallen down here. So I want to actually think about where I'm actually going to attach them. For me, it's going to start off here and just kind of draw it with your finger. So it'll go up that way, across that way, and then up that way. And just kind of visualize it in your head and make sure you're happy with the positioning, that you're not covering up any of that really nice marbling that you created. So start by rolling this out. You need quite a bit for the bottom one. And again, use corn flour to stop the sticking. Make sure you have plenty of corn flour down. And just roll it into a nice big wide section. Right, I think that I've rolled that out big enough, but here's a tip for you just to check. Take some ribbon and just look, use your ribbon to measure. So look at where you want it to start, and because obviously ribbon's flexible like this, you can sort of flex it down, and where you want it to end, and just make sure that you've got enough length here so it sits nicely on the board. So now I know that I've got what length I want. I can check that against here, and that's basically what I'm looking at there. So I have got enough length in my paste. So take either a pizza cutter or a sharp knife, and you want to cut with a slight curve going down one way, and then you want to do the same the other way, but you need width. So you want it about 5 inches wide at the widest point. So just come round and have a nice bit of width to it. Don't worry too much about this bit and this bit. It can come to a point, but it doesn't have to be perfect. I'm going to just pop that there for now because I want to use that again. So take this one. This is your first drape. This is your widest one. If you have any dowels left over, these are quite good for shaping, and it's quite a good trick. So lay them out like this with a bit of a gap between them. And then place this over. Now what you can do is you can just position it so they're just slightly in. And then you kind of press in like that. You can almost then squeeze them together. And what that does, it kind of gives you a head start with getting that kind of drape kind of look. Just put your fingers through and manipulate it nicely. Okay. Then pick up your drape. And you just check that it fits nicely, which it does. So it's quite tricky to do that when I don't have the cake facing me. So then get plenty of glue, but you don't want it so much that if you have loads of glue on there, what will happen is it'll just slide off. You want it tacky. So glue on the top and then bring the glue down, because the drape is going to sit across this whole bit here, just to the bottom here. And then take your drape, and all you do is you just place it on, press it on the top, and just bring it round onto the board like that. Just keep an eye on it because it might fall. Now, at this stage, although it looks pretty, don't worry too much about this bit. What you can do, because the roses are going to cover it, you can actually just press that in, make sure it's nice and secure, and you can just break off any excess like that, because it won't be seen. Although that looks quite pretty, it's not really drapey enough, is it? You've essentially got one bit here and one bit here, but you've got a bit here that's not really soft and flowing like fabric. So this is where the next bit comes in. I'm going to use my paste that I've got left here, and I'm going to make 2 smaller ones. Use the ribbon again if you want to measure. So for this one, start off at the top here. So you're going to stick it on the top again, but it's not going to come quite so far down. It's going to come to about here. So once I've got that measured, I've got my length. I'm going to cut that out. And it's going to be not quite so wide, this one. So, but same sort of shape. So going around like that. And then the same that way. So there's one. And then I'm going to do the same, but I'm going to do it on the bottom. So this one comes around here and just kind of sits down here. So that kind of length. So it's basically similar-ish to the one you've just done. And same in terms of width. There we go, a bit smaller. And then take this. It's worth noting that when you're not using this, you ought to wrap this up in cling film or put it in an airtight container. But I'm just going to put it there for now. Now, time for the gluing. So glue the surface. I'll show you where you need to glue. For the top one, you want to glue on the top again, because that's where it's going to start. And you just want to glue. See this flat bit here? This is where we want to achieve another drape. So glue along this flat bit here, down to here, and then the same underneath. So we want to glue along that flat bit and along here. There we go. Not too much, because you want it to be tacky and not slippery. Then all you do is literally pick it up, so you've got a bit of a bend in it like that, and just make sure you can see. You just want to hold it up like that, press it in, and just let it sit. It really doesn't have to be perfect. It's like fabric. That's that one, and you can sort of have a little manipulation of it. And then the same with the top one. Pick it up, give it a little bit of a shake, a bit of movement in it, and just let it sit, starting from the top and then going down to the bottom like that. And that there gives you that beautiful draped look. As I said, this is going to be covered with roses. And because you've done it in 3 bits, it just makes it a lot easier, and it's so effective. It's going to keep going now. This time I'm going to work on the other 2. Same principles, but obviously just a little bit smaller as we go up. All 3 of them are now done, and look at it. It looks fabulous. But now there's the finishing touch, and that is putting on the roses. We're going to dab some roses on this, cover up our joins, and turn it into a beautiful masterpiece. Before you stick the flowers on the cake, just work out exactly where you want them to go. So I've got my bottom tier, my middle tier, and my top tier here. This paste here is very gooey, and it's because it's my modelling paste and sugar paste 50-50 I had left over from earlier. And what I've done is I've mixed some edible glue in with it and created this really good paste for sticking the roses and the leaves on. So let's start here with the bottom. So with this one, I've got my 2 roses and leaves, and you want a cocktail stick. Now see underneath the rose, because of the way the rose was made, we've got a nice little hole there. So take some of your paste, just a little palette knife is fine, and stick it on the bottom. And then that hole, you get a cocktail stick and just place it in. Because it's 50-50 modelling paste and sugar paste, your roses are still soft enough that you can actually get a cocktail stick in them. So once it's in like that, you then want to stick it into the cake. Just look at where you're placing it and just pop it in. Now, a tip for you, if you have a pair of tweezers to hand, they can help, because what you can do is actually pinch the cocktail stick just to help press that down a little bit. There we go. There's that one. And then repeat with this one. And I think that looks nice. There we go. Right, now I've done that, I'm going to put the leaves on. And the leaves are really good for making it look pretty, but also for covering the sort of flat edges of the roses. With the leaves, you just want to put a little bit on the base of the leaf. And then just stick a few around. So I'm going to put some on that ribbon there, sticking up like that. Just press it in. And then some there. And just keep going along till you have got a nice kind of display of leaves. There, that looks nice. So what I've done is just pop them on, and with these you just repeat here and on the top. Right, that is the last leaf in, and the cake is now finished, and I think you'll agree it just looks absolutely beautiful. One thing I must say is don't forget to take the roses and the cocktail sticks out before serving the cake. Now, if you liked this video, make sure you subscribe to our channel. And if there's anything that you want us to see, let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching.